name is Latoya Lynn. I am a chief people officer and I have worked for various companies, some global, some US based, some companies that some people might have heard of on a global level is LivePerson. I worked for a company called Oscar Health, Compass, Health Scouts, name a few. And I've been in the people space probably for the past only over a decade.
Okay, that's amazing. And what is changing now?
Oh my God, so many things are changing. Where should I begin? I think the best way to explain what's changing is where we started in a sense. So right before the pandemic, HR was a role that like was necessary, but not really was in the forefront as much. And then the pandemic hit. And then all of a sudden people didn't know how to deal with people. So HR was the most important role that a lot of companies elevated to the C level, from very large organizations all the way down to very small companies, really wanted a chief people officer as a partner to the CEO, really seeing the value of it, including all the D&I efforts and all different things that were very important during that time. As organizations shifted throughout the economic turn and how things are going, the role has taken on a very interesting role. And I'll explain. We are at the forefront of once boosting up employee culture, boosting up hiring, and scaling organizations down to like completely pulling it back. A lot of people are getting laid off, losing their jobs. And this is probably the hardest part for the industry. What's happening actually to HR professionals is that they are burnt out. A lot of them are moving away from working for large organizations, taking on fractional opportunities, things like that. So it's been a whirlwind of an industry based on how people are experiencing the workplace.
Okay. And what is, and outside of HR specifically, the $1 million question, what does the future of work look like?
The future of work is going to depend on the organization. I think what the pandemic has shown us is that work can happen anywhere. And a lot of companies are reverting back to coming into the office, reverting back to focusing on human time and people time and group time and connections, which are really important things. But what they're doing and what they're missing is it's not evolving. They just want to go back to how it was. So the future of work really is a people-centric and people-focused, even though this is an employer market. Because the market flips, either employee market or employer market. This is an employer market. People are still demanding to work and the best talent, working flexibility, working anywhere, having those capabilities. We're also seeing the gig economy boost back up, where people are dusting off their LLCs and the consulting badges on LinkedIn and bringing that to the forefront so they can work as much as they would like to and then stop as much as they would like to. So the future of work is completely different. And the traditional like 9 to 5 mindset, the traditional salaried employee is slowly disappearing.
And talk to us a bit about AI in this whole mix.
I think that it's being seen as a buzzword at the moment. But if you ask people that really know it, and me coming from technology, is the automation of getting things done and getting smarter and better. You know, what HR can do, and some companies have been doing it, I myself have been a part of it, is infusing that into the work culture. You know, for certain jobs or certain disciplines, you don't have to be behind your desk doing every single detail. You can automate a good amount of what your work is. And I think what we can see more of is HR executives leading those charges. Back in 2020, I believe, I decided to get a certification at MIT in artificial intelligence and business applications because for whatever reason, I felt like this was going to be the future. And here we are some years later talking about this. So AI can play a really big part in scaling and changing how people's work. Right now, there's a lot of fear around AI taking people's jobs. And to be honest with you, I would like AI to take a good portion of my job so I can focus on the more human connection work, from writing emails to reports to answering FAQ type questions. If that can get wiped off my plate or my team's plate, we are focusing on more strategic and higher quality thinking, then everything will be better for the organization and for even the employees in the company.
And what I'm hearing is that I will allow HR to be a more strategic role and focus. on what's important.
I'll give you another example. I used to work at a company called LivePerson, a publicly traded company, global organization. And what they did was they used a messaging platform to help scale contact centers. And I was very short on staff, surprise. And we had about 2,000 people and one HR generalist, which is insane. And she had so many tickets. So what we did was we used the Live Engage platform as our customers use, and we were able to have them text a number, answer a queue of 1, 2, and 3,
Wow.
and either they got directed to things that went right to our handbook. They either went directly to a different section to be able to answer the question, or if the bot couldn't answer the question or the AI couldn't answer the question, then it will generate a ticket. So what we saw was over a course of time, with Amy would have, her name was General Amy, she had 500 tickets and per day and went down to about 50 or 60 tickets. And not only did it help the conversation and build a relationship between HR and the employees, people didn't really need to speak to a person. They needed to just have their answer. And then the real quality questions came up where we can spend time having one-on-one deep conversations about it. So there's just so much you can do with scaling artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are numerous challenges facing HR at the moment. What is the biggest, in your opinion?
Being seen as business leaders. I think that we've come very far from personnel department in the industrial times.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I think HR, and this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, is educating employees on how HR can be a partner, educating the business all up to the board, how HR can be a partner. We're seen as sometimes disposable in a sense. Do this thing, make this people problem go away. And I think that HR, and this is a quote that I use personally, this is my quote, I think HR is a representation of how your company or how your employee population is. The lower the quality and the lower the resources of your HR department is a direct reflection on how your employees are experiencing the workplace. And the more you invest into that organization, you're investing actually in people. The job is to help people, right? And most times when HR departments aren't working very well, aren't doing a very good job, is because they're under-resourced, they're not solving the right problem, they're seen as like tactical executors, and which is important, but there are layers to it. I'll give you an example. I had an organization that was going through a change, and we were conducting a survey. And a lot of the leaders left the organization that were valued. They weren't the right skills for the company, but people really believed in them. And they were hiring people, but the employees really didn't really see that. What they were going through was a social psychology epidemic, and it's called believer syndrome, meaning that they believe and they connect with the person on a personal level, as opposed to a professional level, then creating a gap and a confusion on what leadership should be in the organization. And the business couldn't really wrap their head around like why this was happening. I said, no, because you have to hire people that have both the charismatic skills and the skills. It's like a transition. You can't get like a suave leader leave and then just we need an operator. And then they're just going to be like, I missed that suave leader, even though they were wrong, they weren't helpful, they weren't anything. It's a personality piece. And this is where HR comes in and speaks on these topics in a way to help them understand the challenges that they're going through in an organization. But those are the things that like can really help the company really boost and do really well.
100%. And I think also if HR harnesses data a lot more to have those conversations, the more believable those conversations become and the more they take shape.
That's right. And I think HR and data is something that's super important. I think that sometimes people confuse data. Sometimes people, and this is from my experience, look at people data as like not real. because there is some gray in it because people are not like numbers. This is not, I think of an operations department, I think of finance organization, the finance department that is backed by data. Like it's information goes in and then other information comes out. And HR leaders work really hard on trying to build that, but I think that's the wrong approach. I think you have to weigh in the qualitative just as much as the quantitative. There's a story behind every single data point. In aggregate, you need to be able to do that and look at it at a high level to be able to tell a broad story. But once you peel back the onion, that's when the gray comes, and the engineering department is different than the sales department. That's different than the marketing department. You break that out, and those bits are really important. And again, it's really how you view your employee base and what they're saying and what you want to hear from them.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about employee training because I think it's representative of how things have shifted. I feel like once upon a time, you used to go and get yourself a qualification, and there you were, and you did a training course every now and then you were set for life. And now things have changed. You have to be constantly learning new skills. You have to be learning a new way of working. What is HR's role in facilitating that?
I love that question. Because I work in tech, everything is evolving all the time. And you have to create a workforce that's constantly evolving alongside with it. You know, you can't just do one thing. Because if you do one thing, training and learning and development is a direct representation on how you want your organization to grow and be ahead. And you have to constantly, like every 3 to 6 months, you need to, especially especially on the tech side, engineers, the biggest investment you can make in your engineering, your R&D functions is making sure they have the best skills on a regular basis and constantly training in order to make your product faster, smarter, efficient, better, things like that. So it's really about being competitive and capital gain. We just finished the Olympics, and up until they're racing, they're training.
Yeah.
Up until they start competing, they're still training. Because you have to always build a muscle, build a mindset, build a strength up until that very moment, regardless of whatever you're done. Now, we can run an experiment and say, we'll take an A/B test and say half of the sprinters can sit out and up until it's time for them to race versus sprinters that race up until that point and see what happens. And the likelihood of the ones that have been practicing more and more, building more endurance, will probably win. So when you think about that for your organization, it's very similar to that. Like you have to constantly be training up until that very last point.
Absolutely. I think it's a shift in mindset from training for a skill versus training as a culture.
That's right.
As a way of being in an organization. Thank you. Okay, I am going to ask you 2 more questions. Your biggest win?
My biggest win?
Mm-hmm. Something that you think other HR professionals could
one win.
Learn.
Yeah, one win for me. When I was working at LivePerson, I really tried to get in the eye of the customer. And I knew how to deploy the product. I sat at customer dinners.
The customer of the business?
Multiple customers.
Right.
And I heard their challenges, their problems, their stories. So I was right next to the executives. And all of my strategies were relevant. I didn't have to build something in a silo
Mm.
and then be like, do you approve executive ABC? Because half the time they don't know.
Yeah.
But if I say, wow, this is a multi-million dollar customer, we're not skilled up in that area yet to deploy this thing that they're asking for in 6 months. Here's what I think we should do.
That's a great example. That's a great example of being super business relevant.
Yeah.
And HR as the true strategic partner.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to ask you to end off for your drop the mic professional quote or philosophy you live by.
If you're not on the invite, show up anyway and see what they do. Oftentimes, HR professionals are brought in after the fact. And if you see a meeting and you see all these people in there, show up, see what's about. It can't be that confidential because you're the most confidential person in the company.
Thank you, Latoya. Absolute privilege.
Thank you. That was great. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you.